Hello and welcome to the Horsemanship Mindset Podcast with your host, Kimberly Dunn of Idlewild Horsemanship and Mindset Coaching. This podcast is here to bring you the very best in tips, tricks, and advice to help you better understand yourself, your mindset, and your horse, because your horsemanship starts with you. Let's go. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horsemanship and Mindset Podcast. I am absolutely delighted to have you here, as always. I hope this episode finds you well and happy and enthusiastic, ready to be here and absorb some wonderful information about something horsemanshipy or mindset-y. We just don't know what's going to happen. Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. Today, we are talking about something that a lot of riders experience, but actually don't realise what it is they're doing and why. And that is the old classic catastrophizing. I've spoken about this many times before, but it always bears, it's always worth talking about it again because I want to give you an alternative kind of spin on it today. So catastrophizing is that thing where, let's say you're getting ready to ride and then your brain suddenly goes, what if he spooks? What if he naps? What if I just can't stop him? What if I fall off? What if everyone sees? What if I lose my confidence again? What if today goes horribly? And suddenly you go from that to not even being in the present moment, absolutely not in the present moment anymore. And you're 3 miles down the road and your horse is spooked at a tractor, you've fallen off, you've broken something, maybe you've ended up in a bloody helicopter, you're embarrassed because you've embarrassed yourself in front of everybody, and you're wondering whether maybe you just need to sell your horse right now and take up knitting instead. And guess what? In that moment, your horse hasn't actually done anything. Your head has done the whole thing. And then because you've just catastrophized, your nervous system is then triggered. And sure enough, things don't go very well. So today's episode is looking at moving from uncertainty. So you don't know what's going to happen. Nobody can predict what's going to happen to them in the next 5 minutes, let alone 10 minutes or hour. So uncertainty, how you move that into catastrophe, and then you move into, doom and gloom and disaster. So how can we move that from uncertainty into curiosity? Curiosity is going to be your friend. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you 5 really simple, really easy reframes that you can take away from this episode and you can use the next time your brain starts writing a disaster movie about your horse. And when I say disaster movie, I'm talking Final Destination style, because one of my clients that recently I've just finished working with, that's exactly how she described her catastrophizing was, everything turned into blooming Final Destination, which is, if you haven't seen it, a ridiculous film. I really wouldn't recommend you watch it because that's like worst case scenario happening all over the flipping place. We don't need it. You don't need it. Don't watch it. Okay, so let's go. Let's first of all look at what actually is catastrophizing. Can I ever spell catastrophizing? No, I cannot. I always heavily rely on autocorrect for that one. So I don't want you walking away wondering about what it means or thinking that it means that you are a dramatic person or you're irrational or because, these thoughts pop up, that means there's something wrong with you or whatever, because it absolutely does not. So basically, catastrophizing is a thinking pattern where your brain takes a possibility, any kind of possibility, and then mentally fast forwards it into the worst possible outcome. So something can happen and your brain then goes, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this, and this, until you arrive at the worst case scenario. And the interesting thing that happens here is that catastrophizing can make you feel like you are preparing. So your brain thinks, well, if I imagine everything that can possibly go wrong, I'll be prepared for it. And if we think about this from kind of like a primal, evolutionary perspective, yeah, of course, our brains are pretty good at looking for potential threats because they need to be. That's how we stay alive. But when you're dealing with horses, there is an almost endless supply of things that your brain could underline that one, interpret as potential threats. So let's say your horse looks at something, maybe his ears go forward, his head comes up slightly, maybe he feels a little more energetic today, or there's a tractor in the distance, or the wind picks up. Someone opens a gate, someone else is doing something on a horse somewhere, or you haven't ridden for 2 weeks, and suddenly your brain goes into danger mode. And then this is where it gets interesting because your horse isn't necessarily experiencing the situation the same way you are, despite the fact that they are a prey animal, so they do need to be switched into this stuff. Your brain might be already 5 steps ahead, imagining what could happen. Meanwhile, your horse is standing there thinking, there's a wheelbarrow, and that's it. And this is why you becoming aware of your own thought process matters. So actually, for our horses, this is an advantage because our horse is living in the present and the right now. But then we, the human, are living off, 10 minutes into the future where we're now in hospital, whereas your horse is in the present moment. So, yeah, crackers really. Anyway, so your thought process matters. So your thoughts affect your body, as I'm sure by now you've realised. So these catastrophic thoughts that you're having affect your body in the way that, your survival mode is triggered. So your breathing changes, your muscles tighten up, your attention narrows, you become more vigilant. And as a rider, then that changes how you're communicating with your horse and the energy that you are giving off to your horse. So research and lots of equestrian psychology literature have highlighted how anxiety can affect riders' tension, focus, timing, and behaviour, and how rider anxiety can potentially influence the horse-rider interaction. When I say potentially, look, potentially, I know for a fact it happens because I know from me and I know from other, from people I've worked with. Your nervous system is online, right? You're in survival mode. So you are giving off the energy of something's wrong. Your horse picks up on this. So then they start thinking something's going wrong. And then that's how the cycle starts of, not ideal things happening. So I'm not saying to you, the answer is just stop worrying. Just don't do it. Just don't catastrophize. And then everything will be good again and you'll be fine. Because if that worked, none of us would have a problem. If I could just go around saying to everyone, just don't do it. Just stop catastrophizing and that's it. I wouldn't have a business. So quite frankly. Now, what I want you to do instead is learn to notice the thought before you follow it automatically down your little road of doom. Okay. So this is where we bring in curiosity and where curiosity is going to help you. Because there's a really, really simple distinction between catastrophe and curiosity. So curiosity closes the story, it puts a full stop on the end. Okay? No, did I say catastrophe or curiosity? Catastrophe closes the story. There's a full stop on the end. Curiosity keeps the story open for you. And there's like endless possibilities there with curiosity, good possibilities. So while catastrophe might have you thinking, oh, he's looking at that, so he's probably going to spook. Curiosity says, oh, okay, interesting. He's looking at that. I wonder what it is he's noticed about that. And then catastrophe might step in and say, oh, what if he bolts? And then curiosity will say, well, what is he actually doing right now? Catastrophe says, this ride's going to be awful. And curiosity says, I wonder what happens if I give myself 5 minutes and see how we go. So I want you to think about the difference there, because curiosity isn't going to require you to pretend. We're not, what's the word? We're not, what's the word? not bypassing. Well, it kind of is bypassing. We're not trying to fool ourselves into thinking everything's going to be safe every minute of the day, especially not with our horses. You're not pretending that everything's wonderful. It doesn't mean you ignoring like genuine warning signs and genuine things that you need to notice. And it doesn't mean that you're trying to force yourself into doing something that you don't feel ready for. It's not recklessness. But what it is you choosing to gather information before your brain writes the ending to the story, the final destination ending to the story. And that's a huge distinction. So let's look at some reframes. So our first reframe that I want you to kind of start adapting, if you wish to do so, is what if something goes wrong? So you've got what if something goes wrong? Change that around to what is actually happening for me right now? And this is probably the best one, I think, because catastrophizing is almost always future focused. Like I said, it's kind of off in the future. Your horse is in the present moment, but your head's pinging across to the future. So when you do that, your brain isn't actually responding to what's happening in the moment. It's responding to what you think might happen next. Okay? So the next time you notice yourself spiraling, just bring yourself back to, well, what is actually happening right now? Not, oh, what if he spooks? But, okay, so right now in this moment, he's looking at something. So not, oh, what if he takes off? But, okay, what's happening right now? His walk has become a little quicker. Not, what if I lose control? But I notice I'm holding my breath. Not, oh, this is going terribly, but okay, my horse has become tense and I'm feeling tense too. And that is a very different place to operate from because you're moving from prediction to observation. And observation gives you choices because the observation part, like, okay, so the example we just talked about, my horse has become tense and I'm feeling tense too. So, okay, I noticed that. I've noticed my horse is tense. I've noticed I'm tense. What can I do about that? Well, okay, I'm going to stop for a minute. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to change what we're doing so that my horse can relax. Notice that, the difference there. The difference is, okay, well, let's stop and do something about it. Whereas if you catastrophize, you're not doing anything about it, are you? You're just trying to push through and hoping for the best. Well, you're not even hoping for the best. You're planning for the worst, aren't you? So, yes, hopefully that's given you a good idea of the difference there. So let's look at reframe number 2. What if it goes wrong? 2, I wonder what will happen. And this one is ridiculously simple, but give it a try. So instead of you thinking, what if he spooks at that? What about, oh, I wonder what he'll do? Again, see how open that is. What if you won't go past that? I wonder what happens if I approach it like this. What if I can't cope? I wonder what I'm capable of here. I wonder's a good one, isn't it? And notice how those questions feel in your body because the first question assumes danger. Again, we're off in the future. The second creates space for new information for you. And again, information that you can then observe that you can deal with. So you're not saying to yourself, oh, he's definitely not going to spook. You're just saying, I don't know yet. I don't know what's going to happen. And that is a much more powerful place to be because I don't know yet is totally different from something terrible is going to happen. See how I don't know yet is open. Something terrible is going to happen is closed. Hopefully this is making sense to you. Okay, reframe number 3. I have to know what will happen. Okay, let's change that to I can handle information as it arrives. So this one is a good one if you feel like you need certainty before you can feel confident, which a lot of us do. Because certainty, it feels safer. Now, we will never have complete certainty with a horse because they're a horse. They are their own, they are a sentient being of their own, they will do what they want to do, not what we want them to do. And we can't predict them. They're not a robot. And that isn't a failure of, your horsemanship skills. That is the nature of working with another living, breathing being. You can't know exactly what your horse is going to do every second of every ride or every session that you spend with them, or even if you're on the ground with them. And I want to move away from, confidence, meaning that, oh, well, nothing's going to go wrong, to thinking actually more along the lines of, well, if something unexpected happens, I can respond and I can deal with it. So rather than you trying to stay safe or feel safe by predicting every single possible scenario, again, mostly what's going to go wrong, how about if we think about practicing actually trusting your ability and your knowledge and your skills to deal with information as it comes in for you? So let's say your horse looks at something and you notice, okay, they're looking at something, and you breathe. You're allowed to breathe. You don't have to hold your breath. And then you assess the situation and then you respond to the information. And that's it. Like, you don't have to mentally rehearse 17 disaster scenarios before you're allowed to let yourself feel safe. Okay. Number 4. So this means something's wrong. 2, what else could this mean? So this is a horse behaviour one. Because we can be really quick to assign meaning to things, and we can also be very quick to, oh God, am I going to be able to say this word? Is it anthropomorphize? Where we try and make an animal's feelings like human feelings, which absolutely is not the correct definition, but you know what I mean. So we can be very quick to assign meaning to things. So we can think, he's tense, he's being naughty, he's going to explode, he doesn't trust me, he's doing this on purpose, he knows I'm nervous, he's going to do it again. But behaviour is information, and it isn't always an answer. So what could this mean? Well, it could mean a number of things. It could mean that your horse is tired. Maybe they're distracted. Maybe something's changed in their environment. Maybe they're confused. Maybe they're uncomfortable. Maybe they're just excited. Maybe they've noticed something that you haven't, because your horse's senses are way more switched on than ours. Maybe they're just simply having a moment, and that's okay. And sometimes your original interpretation, it might be correct. But curiosity gives you that opportunity to find out. Because again, when you stay in that curiosity and that observation, rather than the immediate kind of prediction and freaking out, your nervous system is calmer, and you are much more likely to be able to help your horse and move on from that moment than you would be if you've allowed yourself to spiral and then flip into survival mode. Okay? And that is the reason why curiosity is such a useful skill when it comes to horsemanship and horse training, because you are observing your horse rather than immediately labeling them. And that one's kind of easier said than done, I think, especially if you come from a certain way of thinking, but give it a try. So reframe number 5. I need to make this go perfectly. This needs to be perfect. We're all perfectionists, aren't we? 2, what can I learn from this? Okay. How many of us are perfectionists? Loads. And so here's what we do. We then turn every interaction that we have with our horse into a test that we either pass or fail, So the horse spooks, we've failed. The transition wasn't perfect, fail. They got nervous, fail. The hack didn't go to plan, fail. They wouldn't canter immediately when we asked, fail. And suddenly, you're not then experiencing your horse, you are evaluating yourself. And so instead, if you ask, what can I learn from this? Again, curiosity. What can I learn from this? What did I notice? What did my horse just tell me? What happened in my body? When did I become tense? What triggered me to feel that way? What helped? What didn't help? What could I try differently next time? And that then turns the whole experience from judgment, from judging yourself, into information. And that is a totally different mindset, and it's a much more helpful one. So hopefully these are going in. If you want to re-listen to this and come back with a notepad and pen, please do. So here's what I want you to remember. Here are the kind of a bit of a run through again. So if you catch yourself catastrophizing, ask yourself these things. So if you're catastrophizing, something's going to go wrong, bring yourself back to, well, what is actually happening right now? And then what if it all goes wrong? Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? What about, I wonder what will happen? I have to know what will happen. I can handle information as it arrives. This means something is wrong. What else could this mean? I need to make this go perfectly. What can I learn from this? And these things that I've just kind of suggested to you, none of them are saying, everything's fine, we're absolutely okay, everything's going to go wonderfully. They're not saying your horse isn't going to spook, because none of that stuff is realistic. None of them are saying you shouldn't feel nervous, because the thing is, when we get in our heads and we're like, I shouldn't be feeling like this, then we shame ourselves and that makes us contract again. But we don't want to be replacing catastrophizing with toxic positivity, with just trying to, put a sticking plaster over it. What we're doing is you are replacing prediction with presence. We're not off in the future. We're in the moment right now. Okay. So a little challenge for you then. What I'd like you to go away and do after you've listened to this episode, particularly if you are a catastrophizing monster. The next time you're with your horse, have a look at your own brain. Have a look at your own brain and notice. Maybe if you're about to ride, or you're out hacking, or you're going to schooling, or you might even just be doing groundwork, or you could be just taking your horse for a walk in hand. Notice your brain, and if you start going, oh, what if? Stop, take a breath, and say to yourself, interesting. That's it. Interesting. Because that tiny word creates a little bit of distance between you and the thought. So that is actually called metacognition. So that's where you are able to zoom out. I'm pretty sure I've done a episode on metacognition. If you scroll back, I'm sure there's one about metacognition. I do say so myself, it's interesting. But it's basically the ability, of you being able to zoom out of your own mind and be self-aware and kind of observe your thoughts rather than being consumed by them. So you thinking, interesting, okay, and having that curiosity, that's something that will allow you to do that. So once you've done that, you're going to ask yourself, what do I actually know right now? What am I curious about? You don't need to solve everything, ever. You don't need to be this fearless hero. You just need to stay in the conversation with reality and the present moment, because this isn't about, proving to yourself that nothing is ever going to go wrong. What you're doing with this exercise is you're collecting evidence that you can actually meet what happens and you can deal with it, because that is so much more sustainable than trying to gaslight yourself into feeling confident. Okay. So the next time your brain starts creating a massive catastrophe, a Final Destination film in your head with your horse. Oh, do not watch that film if you haven't watched it before. I want you to imagine that you're at two doors, okay? Or maybe there's two pathways in front of you. So one door is what if, and the other door is I wonder. And you don't have to force yourself through the second door. You just have to notice that it exists. Because the moment you actually start stepping into that more curious side, you've interrupted that automatic story that you keep telling yourself or you keep inventing. And you've given yourself another option. And that little shift can be enough to change, the entire experience that you have with your horse. So you don't have to have perfect rides, but you can have curious rides. You can notice, you can wonder, and you can ask yourself questions and gather information. And you can let the experience that you have with your horse unfold before you try and decide how it's going to end and what it means. And you might just discover that the thing your brain was busy preparing you to survive, to cling on with, every last fingernail, is actually something that you could have just experienced. So I hope that was helpful today. And if this episode resonated with you and you don't already follow me, find me on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook and TikTok, at the Horsemanship and Mindset Coach, where I share a lot more content most days. And if you are ready to stop feeling like your thoughts are running the show, in not a fun way and you want some support with your own confidence, then you can head to the link in my bio on all of those pages. And there are more resources on there. And there's some free ones, there's some not free ones. You can apply to work with me one-to-one on there. And I am actually, in a week or so, I will have space for one-to-one clients. So if you want to apply to work with me to get that locked in, please do. Or you can send me an email at info@idlewildhorsemanship.com. And also, just to mention, I do have something exciting coming in September for y'all. So keep an eye out for that. I'm just working away behind the scenes on that. And until next time, keep your mind curious, people. So let's steer away from the old catastrophe and steer into a little bit of curiosity. I hope it was helpful. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you again in the next one. Over and out.